Yeah, it's going to be one of those days. Full coffee, full heart, heavy heart, even on Anytime with Ken and Alden. As you can see, it's just Alden. There's no Ken because somebody had to go and be good at what they do and get booked again in Seattle with Mark Ellis. Loser. Not kidding. I love that guy. And yes, he is going to Seattle. I think he was on the plane maybe like an hour ago. I saw him posting a mimosa. Good for him. Good for Ken. He had a rousing success at his first edition of Ken Knapsack's Hot Burbank Nights, and that will be hopefully returning with new additions at Flappers. That was a sold out show, so congratulations, my friend. We love you. We're proud of you. And I heard it was really funny. I heard it was really good. Ken crushed it. First headlining show. Really good stuff. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court of the United States of America have deemed that Ken can't have hot nights in any city anymore. That's a new thing that they're doing. No more hot nights. So unfortunately, it does suck for Ken in that regard. But we will soldier on. We have some news. We have political situations, to say the least. As you can see, I titled this episode Evil Courts, American Kings, and British Elections, because that's where we're at. You know, the Brits, you guys made some serious changes. Serious changes. Over here, the Supreme Court made some serious missteps, we could say. Here in the comments, we've got Brian Pettis. Yeah, I'm glad Ken's not here. All the time. No one has ever said that, except fans of Solo: A Star Wars Story. They have said that about a completely different guy. SCOTUS has ruled that everyone sucks and they hate everyone. 6-3. That's true. That is true. I'm admittedly cool with colder nights. Where the fuck is Ken? Exactly. Oh, man. See, I swore in the first 3 minutes. You're not supposed to do that for the algorithm. So I've heard, if that is even true. Oi, oi, oi. See, we're not talking about Australia, though. That's the thing. Or do we have oi, oi, oi in the UK as well? Oi, oi, oi is universal. Okay. Because I know we've got like Aussie, 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 oi, 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 Aussie, oi, etc. Speaking of Aussies, we're not talking about this on the show today, but I'm enjoying seeing Hugh Jackman back on the press tour. That's been fun. Damn them. Damn the Aussies, damn the Brits, or damn the SCOTUS. Or damn the mutants, because I mentioned Hugh Jackman. You're going to have to be more clear about that. Anyway, we are not alone today. We have some calls coming in. Not even calls, they're just guests. They're going to stay as long as they want to stay. And then maybe we'll have other people as we go. But I knew that I needed our two correspondents from across the pond, from a newly reshaped, a newly revitalized, a newly conflicted, maybe in some ways, UK. And one of them, of course, is our good friend. He brings journalistic integrity, I would say, at least when he's not texting me all of his shit posts and darkest thoughts. From the Imperial Senate podcast, one of my favorite people, one of my oldest friends, Charlie Ashby has returned. Hello. You're muted. Unmute on your end.
Hello.
It does not let me control you. I tried to control you. I said unmute, and it was like, we have asked the guest. I was like, don't ask him. Don't ask him.
Why would you ask me for?
I know. What do you know about anything, really? Why are you here? No. Okay. Interesting times. Fresh off of seeing The Killers last night, which we will also touch on. Before we delve into complete and utter social breakdown, we will talk about a little bit about how we're both doing. And then we are not alone. We are joined by our other good friend. You know him. You love him. This is the man who not only talks Star Wars over on Holy Snokes, but brings us the morning in a good way. Our morning radio, Matty Morner himself, Matty Gunner. Hello.
Gentlemen.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
What a time to be alive is all I gotta say.
What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Because evidently, democracy works over there. At least for in a certain regard. You might have heard your controlling party changed yesterday. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
And so weird feeling. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a weird sort of feeling that's been sort of flowing around a bit today, which is called optimism, which is very scary. We're not fond of that word because, hope lies that way.
Why would we be? Yeah. I mean, every time that we've been optimistic generationally, we've been crushed. I mean, they did that funny, picture of me when the Tories took power versus picture of me now, and it's like, I don't know how old you are, Maddie. How old are you?
I'm 32.
You're 32. Okay, so it's a little bit uneven for you, but for Charlie and I, that's half of our lives. That is just about half. A 14-year rule. That is half of our entire existence, which is just disgusting. And for it to have changed now, we're going to get into obviously the nitty gritty of why that's good, obviously, about why that's not as desirable as maybe it would have been in a different labor era, how they have disappointed on a lot of fronts, especially that of gender and protecting people and being decent to people. They are not the same as they once were. And hey, that sounds familiar because there's a lot of that going around. There's a lot of that to share in. So if anybody has at any point questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, stories, if one of the old guys croaks while we're on air, let us know. But we're going to be talking about it now. Before we get into all that,
that would be funny though, wouldn't it?
That would be
it would be pretty awesome. Not gonna lie. It would be,
I mean, more so one than the other. More so the orange haired one. Like that would just make today like the best. This
would be a 24-hour stream. I wouldn't leave. I would send the link to everyone we know.
I'd also be
sorry, Charlie.
Like with respect to Trump, it'd be the funniest bit for him to die.
It'd be pretty awesome. Like it would just like Anyway, we'll talk about him. Pleasantries. Hello, everybody. Hello. I love you both. Let me throw let me see if they just display names and everything, just in case. Maddie's a little bit cut off by this damn banner. How dare you, banner? Whatever, you can still see that it says Maddie Gunner. That's fine. Just in case you were unclear about who anybody here is, and you can read, that's kind of a prerequisite, I think, for the show and for this conversation. Although based on some of the voters, based on the reform vote, probably a lot of illiterate people out there. And we'll talk about that because reform is something that, again, in what we share, eerily speaks to a lot of what's happening over here, obviously, in a lot of different ways, with the MAGA sect of the conservatives and things like that and whatnot. So before that, Charlie, I wanted to also, so this is not just all dread, talk to me about the Killers yesterday and give me a review of the Killers concert as something good in life before we talk about everything bad in life.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like I said, they're my favorite band, so naturally I'm biased, but it was one of the best performances I've seen them do. Really ramped up. We had Travis as the warm-up act, which I love Travis, and I've never seen them before.
Cool.
So seeing them for the first time was incredible live. And yeah, that's really like straight out the gate. Just
what
really
venue was
into it? O2 Arena.
Okay.
But yeah, like they did a lot of songs from Sam's Town, which was great. They did Interlude and Exitlude to like start the gig and end it.
That's cool.
And obviously because it was the 4th of July, there was a bit of ribbing, American ribbing, like what we beat you guys. And they did a really great cover of Tom Petty, which was just.
I saw your video of that. His voice is perfect for that song. It's really good.
It was so good, yeah. So yeah, really, it was one of those fun moments getting to go to a gig and my favorite band, getting to just relax, and then when another little break between the gig ending and then coming back out for the last few songs, I could check my phone, and that's when I saw the pretty much exit poll reveal. And so it was kind of like I don't have to panic too much anymore. Just a nice little just nice.
And I saw, of course, from both of you, of course, from a lot of friends that we have over in the UK, be they, related to our love of Star Wars or just like film criticism or whatever, or journalists from that side. A lot of people, like Adam Christopher, Hannah Flint, just tons of Kevin Scott, tons of people, all just like, okay, like the entire nation stops, of course, in a moment like that, especially when so much is on the line, especially because if it hadn't gone that way, what would that have meant? So Maddie, give us because we have some people here, like Scotty from Bombad's here. I'm in, pardon my ignorance. I have not been as plugged into the European politics. What has happened? Why is it significant, Molly? Same, but it sounds good. And so give us the rundown of what is happening in the layman.
What has happened in the layman is we have had 14 years of austerity, corruption, deceit, lies, just the worst of politics that's not Vladimir Putin. And it's just finally come to an end after so many years of trying through like Jeremy Corbyn and countless others. We just constantly tried to shift the scales of power. I have my grievances with our political system, as any person does with their country. But yesterday, I can't believe it's the 4th of July and you guys are going to be voting on November 5th. Like, we talked about that off air, the fact that your election is going to be on November 5th and ours is July 4th. It's just constant 14 years of just waking up and thinking, what hell are we waking up to today? Even through like you have the Boris Johnson years of, and I'm going to get a little personal here, of like, I couldn't go to the funeral of one of my childhood best friends because of the rules that this government put into place. And they were in 10 Downing Street partying while I was at home watching one of my childhood friends' funerals through a Zoom screen. And they were getting drunk and they were laughing and they were making a complete joke of it and like not abiding by the laws that they set for us. These are the kind of people that have been in power in this country for so long, and it has been a laughingstock. And regardless of how the circumstances around it, how I don't think this is a big win enough as it is, last night the whole country just came together and said, "You're done, enough." And I know at the minute, you know, you guys over there are dealing with a politician who believes who has now been told that he's above the law and he's above the people. Last night, this country showed no politician, no party is above the people. No one.
Are you saying that this city just showed you that it's full of people ready to believe in good? Because that's what it felt like.
Yep. So it felt good, man. Waking up and seeing the result. We knew for 6 weeks that it was going to be a Labour win.
Yeah.
But Charlie, I don't know about you. When you saw the exit poll last night, I was astounded at what I saw.
Yeah, like a cataclysmically big, like a smackdown of a Labour win.
Yeah, it was a very interesting reveal, and we can get into the nitty-gritty of it in a bit. But yeah, it was just like we knew that Labour were going to win, just because, you know, there's only so much you can do. Like we said, the 14 years of the government, we've had centrist Tories, we've had like progressive right-wing leaning Tories, Boris Johnson being the clown sect of the government, just constant, you know, like it's just hard to describe, like the constant dismantling of social services, homelessness. You know, it's interesting to talk about because like the Tony Blair years, obviously, like I'm not a big fan of Tony Blair. Nope. But if you think about what he did and stuff like homelessness, and like it was, you know, he didn't eradicate it, but the amount of how worse homelessness has become and become a daily thing you just see every day now is disgusting. Food banks, you know, people having to rely on other people, like other situations to get food, kids, you know, going into school starving, and this has become the norm. And it should never have been the norm. So it's, you know, regardless of how you feel, I feel like there's so much of a relief that there's a chance to change that. It's similar to, I guess, for people like in the chat were saying like, what is it like? It's similar, I guess, to when Biden became president, where you know that he's not, you know, he's no Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, nobody wants him necessarily.
No, but it's so much better than Trump. And that's the similar thing that we had, you know, it's just such a relief to have adults in control again. like you said, the parties, having, joking around, WhatsApp scandals. I mean, up to the point where recently there was people betting on their own loss at the election and then getting deselected because of it. Like, it's just...
Yeah, it's criminal investigations, might I add, because they had insider knowledge of when the election was going to take place, and there's ongoing criminal investigations for that. This is the kind of government that we've had in power for the last 14 years.
Yeah, no, it's absolute. I mean, the parallels have been strong, obviously, especially during Trump Boris. I mean, that was just like, how could this have happened at the same time? It just felt like cosmic punishment. But obviously, we'll get into a little bit of a little bit of an explainer of how your system obviously is different. People that don't know the parliamentary layout, the way that this can be this party versus party thing, but also we have historic and interesting trends and side victories for things like green, how we have interesting and historical side victories for devastatingly bad things like reform. And we'll get into all that. I want just for you guys real quick first of all, I would like to draw our attention just so I don't forget. Maddie sent me this earlier. Look at this. How funny this is. It's just great. It's just deeply satisfying. But
may I add, sorry, Alden, just quickly,
please.
He suffered the biggest L in electoral history last night. Bigger than John Major, bigger than anyone else.
Jesus.
So he should be the one holding that L.
I will say, this is not to give him credit. It's just to show how low the bar is. The fact that these are his exact words on Twitter, because it is still called Twitter. He said, "I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear message, and yours is the only judgment that matters. This is a difficult day, but I leave this job honored to have been prime minister of the best country in the world." The fact that is noteworthy at all is sad, but it is sad that there is a shitty conservative out there that can accept defeat because that is not the case here. Over here, the conversation is, if he loses again, will there be another insurrection? This guy seems like he's just going to go complain somewhere. Like, he'll probably become he'll be on Pierce's show by the end of the week or something. Like, he'll just be, who knows? But in terms of the players, I made, the thumbnail. I tried to think what represents sort of government overall. And of course, I choose the Senate chamber. We got Amy Coney Barrett from SCOTUS. We got Joe. Now, tell me about Mr. Starmer over here. It's Starmer, correct? That's correct. So
yeah,
he's a guy that I think, he's obviously been around a long time, but has sort of ascended to the world stage and the standard conversation pretty quickly, at least as it pertains to global. I don't think most Americans knew his name outside of the last calendar year, and now here we are. Where are we at on this guy? We know he's a shithead when it comes to LGBTQ issues and is a transphobe. That's on the record. That's in quotes. That's not speculative. He does suck when it comes to that issue. How did he get to this spot? Why him and not Corbyn? What is going on with this guy?
So Keir Starmer is a high-profile lawyer. He's actually relatively recent in terms of MPs. I think he came in 2015, 2010.
Yeah, I think so.
So he's relatively a new entry point, but he's got a lot of experience and sort of positive feedback from his previous employments in terms of he's dealt with terrorists and all that stuff. He also, to his point, he is the son of a toolmaker, and his mum was a nurse. He kept repeating those two phrases.
Is that one of the default lines?
Is
that like when Kamala Harris says, "What can be unburdened by what has been"?
I come from an NHS family. My father was a toolmaker. Rishi Sunak was the one that didn't have Sky cable when he was growing up, but that would have been a Starmer line as well. It's just,
I mean, to be fair though, if people don't understand the difference between Conservative and Labour, regardless of how obviously there's a lot of context in that. The difference between that, even though we're annoyed because he kept repeating the same thing over and over again, saying that your dad was a toolmaker and your mum was an NHS worker is normal. On the other hand, Rishi Sunak, on the morning or the day before the election, was on a British breakfast TV show in which the presenters gave him a very relatively easy question, which was, it's your last day, number 10. What are you and your family going to be eating? What's your favorite dinner? And this man, his answer was sandwiches.
And this is a man who has more money than the king. He's rich. This Rishi Sunak is, and it's a known fact, he's richer than the King of England.
Wild.
I think that's the difficult thing as well. Obviously, like, I don't know how much you learn about the system in America, but I assume that people just think the king still has the amount of power that he did in like Tudor times. Not the case. I don't know if you know this, but we chopped our king's head off once. And when we brought them back, we pretty much said, look.
Have you considered revisiting that strategy?
Well, there's no point.
I have.
It didn't work.
Matty revisits it every day.
I revisit it every day I wake up. It's like a morning mantra. I look in the mirror and I'm just like, what if?
By the way, I love that everybody, Eli from In the Galaxy podcast comments. My father told me once growing up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Joey, you gotta learn to. It's so funny that like everybody has like their thing.
Is that where he's from? Scranton?
Allegedly.
I thought that was
yeah. By the way, Sean Room in the comments. John Oliver did a great summary of these elections recently. Great explainer. But yeah, well, Sean, I couldn't afford him. All right, that's why I got them. I couldn't afford John. He didn't return the email from the ANYTIME Ken Alden gmail.com.
How dare he?
I know. He's busy? He needs HBO money. Wild.
Yeah. So basically, the thing with the whole monarch is that it's pure. Like, apart from the fact that yes, we do give them money still, and obviously there's all that jazz. It's pretty much all show. That's why people are annoyed at their existence still, because it's pretty much they're getting paid to do nothing. It's all for show. And when people say, "Oh, why can't the Queen or why can't the King just do this?" The answer is just because we killed them last time they tried to speak out against it. So them stamping like the government and allowing them to open and close Parliament, it's literally just pageantry. They're there to be a symbol.
Yeah, the monarchy at this point is like if the Statue of Liberty had opinions and had a salary. Like, exactly. It's a thing that is the iconography of the land and the history of the land, and we like the crown and other things. We like Helen Mirren. That's the American perception of the crown. Is
like she should be the Queen of England. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the last time a royal actually signed a bill into assent was the 1940s. So I think that's the last time they had any actual impact other than allowing a parliament to be formed.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the actual pageantry like that's related to Charles I because he stormed into Parliament and demanded them to give up the MPs that didn't agree with him, and that caused something. I think it was like some sort of civil war or something. I don't know if you guys know about civil wars. But yeah, that was the whole thing. But yeah, pretty much that's the whole hullabaloo.
So now looking at Labor, because it's been a thing that has been noted by many of our friends, like people that we're fans of, whatever, that Labor at a time, it seemed like if the conservatives were analogous to our Republicans, that Labor, and specifically Jeremy Corbyn, was analogous to our Bernie Sanders. He is an older guy. He's not a perfect guy, certainly not. But he is the one that was, standing on the Hill yelling, "We can do better. This is the progressive thing." And young people were like, hey, there's a guy that's in this that actually cares, et cetera, et cetera. And he was the guy for a little bit. How did he end up not being the guy? How did you get this guy who's like, seems kind of milquetoast and shitty in a lot of ways, enough to the point where many people that would have voted Labor decided to choose other paths, and several of them openly choosing Green instead, which does have queer acceptance at its core and does have seemingly a lot of a younger presence within its its leadership and within its volunteering and things.
I mean, a lot of it, there's numerous factors that kind of led to you can't even say downfall of Jeremy Corbyn, because last night he ran as an independent and he whooped Labour in his constituency. He's holding on. He's still like a really well respected MP. But I think there were quite a few factors in that he had a large majority in very safe Labour seats. Like the way Labour's campaign worked around this time is they spread the vote out. Very thin vote margins, but over a wide area. Whereas when Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, he focused solely on like core areas. So you had that. There was also his ties to potential, anti-Semitic comments. I don't know enough about it to go in depth. Charlie, you might know more about it than me. But yeah, it was like a whole, and then the whooping that Labour took at the hands of Boris Johnson was just, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And they were like, look, enough. You're a crazy old man. Get out of here. But that crazy old man's still hanging on, and he's doing well.
He has loyalty. Yeah, it seems like he has, despite his faults and his mistakes, like there still seems to be a desire to see him succeed and to see what he has to contribute, which is a thing that we'll talk about, as we shift into the American topics as well for today. Of like that belief is at an all-time low across the board, just as a concept. Unless what you're believing in is David Tennant, who is 3-0 against prime ministers, which is just a fantastic streak. I
was hoping Kemi Badenoch would lose her seat last night just so David Tennant could have that moment, but somehow she held on.
I would love to be in I would love to be in that house, for the memes, if nothing else.
Did you not see the post that was posted about David Tennant?
No. I saw Georgia Tennant post about Sunak, like, doesn't he look tired, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's them it's basically her and David on the bridge with Parliament in the background with that phrase. In terms of Jeremy Corbyn, it's difficult because obviously there's a lot of people that love Jeremy Corbyn. He's, like you said, he's the left of Labour, right? So Labour are traditionally a working class, left-leaning party. But when Tony Blair came in, he sort of reformed it as this sort of centrist platform, and that's where we got like the Iraq War, blah 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 blah. And it's like a sort of a fight for the soul of the Labour Party over those last 10 years or such. There's people that obviously, like a lot of young people, liked Jeremy Corbyn and voted for him. But the problem is that a lot of people don't like Jeremy Corbyn in terms of the an older vote. Not to just scapegoat everyone, but an older vote didn't really like him. And I mean, as well, to be fair, I don't think Boris Johnson won because people liked Boris Johnson. I think people voted for Boris Johnson because they couldn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn. So the truth is that, people would rather have taken a clown with the hands on the nuclear detonator than they would with Jeremy Corbyn. So that's why they've.
That happens. That happens in Star Wars. Like, people can't find a good channel, so you see what they subscribe to. Like, it happens. Like, people are lazy, and they yeah.
But it's
fundamentally too. I think the sentiment globally, there's been such a cynicism, and obviously, and then right-wing sympathies have grown across the world. And it's happening in Spain. It's obviously happening in France. It's happening in the UK. It's happening here. And I think that, when it's just centrism fighting the right, you disenfranchise so many people that I'm sure that there's also probably a lot of I know it's a problem here. It's probably a problem over there too, of we just won't vote people. And we're tired and we're just not going to participate at all. And all they're sending is, what I've said of the Democrats here, which is that they are the experts in sending a knife to a gunfight, and then when they inevitably get shot, they come back and they say, they shot us because we only had a knife, but if you donate, maybe we can get a better knife for the next one. And that's their entire strategy. Let's talk about a little bit about what's going on with Reform, who are sort of like that analogous entity to MAGA. These are the outright far right bigots, anti-immigrant,
crazy people,
trash, crazy people who I saw, maybe it was on one of your Instagram stories, maybe it was on somebody else, one of you who lives over there, one of yous posted like how sad it is that in X amount of years, Green can pick up 2 seats or 3 seats and Reform can pick up 13, which just says, the thesis of that to me is like people hate so strongly in the immediate because hate is easy and gross and weak. But there's a party over here that's like, what if we helped the world? And that seems so lofty and dumb. It's tale as old as time. We're going to abuse the shit out of this world, literally this world, this planet, and each other, this world. But we're gonna scream and shout and betray the whole ride until it burns. And it's sad, man. It's sad. Why Reform? And are you doing your part to bully these people?
I am absolutely doing my part to bully these people. I want to shout out the Green Party for their win last night. They took out Therese Coffey. The fact that the environment minister got taken out by the Green Party, that is poetry at its finest. The thing about Reform is this. I said last night that the only reason Labour won this is because people are tired of the Tories. And at first glance, I was worried because Reform got second place in a lot of seats. A lot of Labour-controlled seats, Reform came second. I saw a lot of young people voting for Reform, which was even worse because they're taking the TikTok approach of trying to appeal to these kids via social media as opposed to having the big party system behind them, when we all know that Nigel Farage wants to be in that club. He wants to be in the elite class. Like, the common man doesn't have a Coots bank account. I mean, I know he doesn't anymore because his got shut down because he is a piece of shit. But it's very much a case of the core Tory voters were still pissed off with the Tories and did not want to vote for Labour. Yeah. So they were like, who is best that aligns with us? Well, we can't vote for the Lib Dems because they're liberals. We can't vote for the Greens because they're hippies. We can't vote for independents because we're too lazy to read about what their actual policies are. Oh, that guy hates immigrants. Let's vote for him.
Yeah.
So this is a very thin win for Reform, I think.
And I love the point you just made about independence, where Bernie Sanders over here is an independent because he has to be, because the system is a little bit more rigid. You're not going to see, you will never see a graphic in the United States with the colors of the rainbow, 7 people and 7 different percentages. That'll never happen here. It's always like, we might lightly touch on, the third and fourth placers if we have to, but like, it's just not a thing, as much as I wish it was. But yeah, that point about like anyone that is choosing to not immediately just either lick the boot of or sing the song of the party platform, people, you're asking people then to do research. And it's so sad that we live in a time where people won't. And I mean in a real way, not in the way of like your worst uncle saying he did his own research while he's coughing up a storm and then dead. Now, just broadening a little bit, in terms of what you guys think now. I know we're 1 day into this. I don't even think Starmer's not even prime minister until a later date.
No,
right?
he
like
is.
That has
No,
he is now.
Yeah, he's prime minister.
Oh, okay. So that happens the next day.
So basically what happens is that, as soon as you get voted in, you got the majority, you basically leaving speech, and like.
No, hold on. You're cutting out a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me.
I cut out a little bit.
You're good. You're good. You said so. Yeah. So get the majority. Someone gives the leaving speech.
Get the majority.
Yeah.
And give them credit, to give them some like least credit. They at least, handed over gracefully, gave a speech, said, please support the government. Good luck to them, sort of thing, which I know that sounds really like bare bones and like obvious, but compared to the fact that like you said, you had insurrectionists trying to fight back for control in this world.
Yeah.
I'll take what we can. So what happens is that, so Keir Starmer went to go see the king, and then he got his permission to open Parliament as the Prime Minister, and then that makes him officially the Prime Minister, and then he moves into Downing Street. And then this afternoon,
what do you think William does in that scenario? Do you think William is just sitting there with like a large like pepperoni pizza, just like sitting around waiting to be addressed? Like, does he have to be on deck?
No.
Does he have to be present? Does he have to be like awake and dressed? Like, is this super ceremonial? Do cameras?
Well, I would hope so. It's like 12 o'clock when this is happening.
Yeah, he's probably like you get the picture of the two of them, like Starmer and Charlie Boy, shaking hands, and William's probably just like off in the corner, just like, cool, I'm learning that I have to do this one day. Yay for me.
Yeah, interesting.
It's always like that. You can see the little smile that he has. He's like, "Oh, hello."
Yeah, so because it's like if Charles is. Charles, by the way, I resent the notion. I think I misspoke. I said William. I resent the notion though that Charles could not be sitting with a pepperoni pizza. You know, after the wait that he went through for that chair, you know, he should be able to bring any whimsy and fun to that job that he can.
Whoopee cushion.
Yeah. Now when it is actually William, I think it would be hilarious if like they tried to young up the monarchy. Like if they were like William's like we will be going live. We will be going live with the new PM. Here they come. They're coming in. We're about to reopen.
I just told you about the fact that we cut ahead of a monarch, right?
Yeah. Look, I'm just saying. There's still time to
do you remember that influencer that was playing around with the gun on TikTok and accidentally shot himself? What if one of them accidentally beheads themselves live on TikTok?
That'd be great. For history's sake. Jonah's here. One of my favorite people. Love you, Jonah. Jonah, I find it annoying too how much media coverage reform is getting. At the end of the day, thankfully, Green got the same number of seats, but yet you hardly have heard about it. That's interesting.
Client media for you, Jonah. That's client media.
Yeah, I mean that's
goddamn
very similar to here. Very similar to here, where it's like, look, we'll talk about the Joe. We took the week off during the Joe debate because Ken had to do a work project, but it's the same basic principle as like what Joe did was a shitty debate performance. It was a bad performance in terms of speaking and delivery and presentation and strategy and all that. What Donald Trump did was outright lie and make things up, including things like aborting babies after they're born, which after consulting with a lot of judges, I have figured out, guys, is just murder. That's not called aborting babies.
That sounds like murder to me. That definitely checks all the boxes of murder.
I'm pretty sure that's just infanticide. So it's like that, where it's like reform. I think because they're loud and they're disgusting, you know, that's always gonna win over like, let's talk to these young folks who care. Like that's like, you know, over here we take those people and we shove them onto, you know, small podcasts and YouTube channels, and you know, maybe they'll pop up on PBS or something. And it's sad, you know, because it's like then those same news outlets 10 years from now will look back on this when they're looking at the next era, and they'll say like, well, you know, it's a shame that reform never. It's a shame that Green never got the momentum, you know, maybe that they could have had. And it's like, well, I wonder.
But that's the thing as well. Like, it was so interesting last night, and Matty was so spot on with what he said about like reform. It's similar to the Corbyn thing where people felt like they couldn't vote for Labour, so they vote for someone else. And this is the case. This is just the right wing of the party feeling like they're not belonging in the Conservatives, so they're now voting for reform. Yeah. And I feel like that's the interesting part, is to see where the Conservative Party go now, because they were pretty much decimated, nearly. And it's a case of what they do. Do they try and centralize and pick a new, because they'll have to pick a new Tory leader, or will they just read all the wrong messages and go further to the right, which is what it seems like will happen, because the Tories that kept their seats are right wing.
What you're speaking to is the sad problem in both of our countries, which is that people don't look at these things and say, what are my convictions and my principles, and where can I find those? They say, let me gauge the movement of this thing like it's a fucking kite in the sky. And then if it moves in a way that makes me feel like then I just immediately move this way and this way. And it's like, that's not how you make decisions. That's such
I feel like, to be fair to the British public, for a second. I think.
Why?
I think a lot. Well, that's a good point.
Why?
I think a lot of people did vote tactically this time, and that's why we saw sort of a reduce of some Labour votes, which I think is a positive for the net gain. Like independents elected, and sometimes in shock moments.
Yeah.
For example, the exit poll predicted 13 seats for Reform, but actually they only got 4.
Yeah. Same amount as Green.
Same amount as Green Party. So actually they're equal length. And with the Reform, I think Clacton one was guaranteed. And the thing we'll get into, because I guarantee he.
No, you're cutting out a little bit, Charlie.
Money, financial things to the government, which, and that won't last. And also he has to do work, which I don't think he'll be good at. And then the other one was Lee Anderson, who was a Tory. I think he was also a left. I think he was a Lib Dem originally, and then he became Tory, and then he became Reform.
30p leave.
Ridiculous.
That's like,
yeah.
But yeah, for people that don't know the overall results of the election. Am I cutting out a bit?
You're back now. You're back.
Oh my
God, you did a little bit, but you're good.
Right, great. So basically, there was a Labour landslide. So the majority, Labour. It was the worst Tory defeat in history. The Liberal Democrats. So the Liberal Democrats are kind of like traditionally the third party, but in recent years they basically got killed off because in 2010, I don't know if everyone remembers, when the Conservatives were brought on board, they didn't have enough to have a full majority, so they had to make a hung parliament with the Lib Dems, which was so bizarre because it was like the Liberals hanging out with the right wing and being like, we could be a super team, well, we can make things happen, we can make sure that they push us down, and instead they did the worst, and they just like reneged on all their things,
just
like
folded like a cheap deck chair.
We can be a super team. When does that ever happen? Like, even just like in our fiction, like that's like whenever they're like, what if? It's like whenever a Marvel villain now, like 82 years into the Marvel universe, is like thinks they're the first ones to come up with the Masters of Evil. They're like, what if we team?
It was literally like how the Duck teams up with the Red Skull.
So there's like a useless, like silly side sea-level character. And then that's pretty awesome.
And they folded like, and it when in the British politics, if you create a disaster and you're the leader of a party, what you do is you go off and join Facebook in a big financial role, which is what happened to Nick Clegg, who was a twat.
Yeah.
But Lib Dems actually revived themselves for the best result for that party, or for a third party.
I love it, Davey. Leader of Lib Dems, he's awesome.
So yeah, they had the best result for a third party since 1923. And like Matty said, Ed Davey Labour have been doing all their canvassing, Tories have been doing all their canvassing, fighting each other on taxes. The entire whole this last 4 weeks of the whole building up, Ed Davey, the leader of the Lib Dems, just keeps doing these crazy stunts. Like he keeps doing water skiing, waterboarding, bungee jumps, and doing all these crazy stunts, and it worked.
We have Joe Biden bungee jump.
Could you imagine?
No, he's the left wing Boris Johnson. He really is, because he's actually on the side of good. But he basically took what Boris did with the whole zip line thing and everything. Was that worked for him. Yeah. I wondered if it worked for me.
And he's like when nerds are like, well, why can't a good guy use force lightning? He put that into application. He was just like, I could do those strategies and sneak in some ideas while I do them.
But the other interesting thing was that the SNP sort of exploded. So SNP are like the Scottish National Party, and pretty much they've folded. Which
I really like Stephen Flynn. I think Stephen Flynn from the SNP, he not only did he always call the Conservatives out on their bullshit, but he took Labour to task as well. I feel like if that guy had one of the main parties behind him, he could really do something. Which is also what I think about the next, when you mention where do the Tories go from here. I think Farage is going to jump ship. I think Farage is now, he's in the door, like on his 8th try. This is the 8th time that Farage has attempted to get into the House of Commons, and now he's in there. I have a sneaking suspicion that the Tories are going to, like, because who have they got? Cruella Braverman or James Cleverly? They're going to see the guy who's on the furthest of the right and be like, do you want 4 seats or do you want 121? And you can really do something with you. And one thing that I did want to bring up is the distinct lack of the talk of Brexit in this election. The Brexit deal is coming up soon, and Farage was pretty much the main person that was championed. We need to leave the EU, take back our borders, sovereignty, all that bullshit that he was feeding everyone, that everyone believed. And Starmer has to tread that with like a knife edge, because if he doesn't, and especially if Farage gets hold of the Conservative Party leadership, he'll be like, well, the Tories didn't do it right. He didn't do it right. I'm the only one. So give me your vote. So
that all depends on if he stays as an MP, which I just don't see him doing work. I just don't see him doing the work. I don't see him going to constituents. I don't see him admitting all his money. I don't know. It's risky, like you said. Yeah,
you have to respect it on a certain like base level of like I'm in it for the gamesmanship, and then you realize like I think that's kind of Trumpian. Like, oh shit, I have to do this.
He was going to be an advisor for Trump, if I'm not mistaken. That was his plan before he jumped back in.
Yeah. Real quick, one last thing, and then I wanna move out just because we're already like 40-something minutes in, and I know that we could end up doing like an 8-hour show if we let ourselves. In terms of who Labor has lost with, especially their transphobic views. I mean, like Labor's out there meeting with J.K. Rowling on policy, which is like, what the fuck? Like that's a whole thing, obviously. And these are the good ones. So like, what do you think they do for the youth that they've lost, for the communities that they've betrayed? Do you foresee Labor trying to have a relationship with Green in some way that they maybe don't have already?
Well, I think obviously they got a majority in Parliament, so it's easier to let bills go through because they're going to vote for most of it. And so they don't. I mean, it's like you said, it's a treading ground. You don't want to lose all the people that you got on board, because then you don't, in the next election or by-elections, you lose the amount of candidates you have in the majority. One would hope that actually, because like you said, there are a lot, like Keir Starmer's a centrist, and a lot of some of his statements and stuff are just dreadful, and I hate anti-trans sentiment. I hate the whole J.K. Rowling thing is ridiculous, and you can burn it in hell. And the whole, like the Gaza thing, like those are terrible. Biggest weakness, dude. That's his biggest weakness, and I think I can only live in the hope that now we've got a bigger majority, a bigger sort of Lib Dem presence, a bigger Green presence, that we've got a Liberal MPs in that house that can push back on them.
They won't be able to just steamroll them. They'll have.
Hopefully, they will do stuff. Left leaning.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm delusional, but hopefully.
Well, you're still riding the high of the killers, so we'll give you 48 hours before you crash.
Because it's difficult, and like you said, it's very hard to. Sometimes you do lose faith in people, and some of the voices that are loud like just seem to be loud.
Yeah.
But there's a stat I want to read out, which I think restored my faith in humanity a little bit. So there's one person who ran as an independent yesterday called Posey Parker, who's she's basically the leader of the TERFs, massive TERF. She ran under this, I can't remember the name of the party, but something to do with women. Big TERF platform. J.K. Rowling pushed her. I was like, she's amazing. Keep going for her. She lost yesterday. Not only did she lose, she lost so fucking badly that she got 196 votes. Okay, I'm going to read out 3 people that beat her in terms of voted. Okay, so Posey Parker, the TERF, got 196 people. So only 196 people shared her views. Okay, these are the people that beat her. in parliamentary voting system yesterday. Count Binface. 308 votes. Okay?
They're a real person.
That's awesome.
This is with 458 votes. Okay, bear in mind she got 196. With 458 votes, King Arthur Pendragon.
He's back.
There's a picture of him. I'll send you a link to the tweet because it's exceptional.
Wait, so this is how I'm learning that you guys have shit post right. You guys have write-in votes. I didn't know that.
Yes. I put a link in the chat for everyone to have a look at. And then with 618 votes, Captain Beanie, who's a man dressed as baked beans.
Oh, there
One
you
of
go.
my personal favorites.
So,
He won.
The people have spoken.
Votes.
Turfs, the fuck out of here. Beans in. Arthurian legend in. Like
Binface in.
I need you to take a picture. I need you to look at this Arthur Pendragon because he looks like a badass. I'd vote for him.
Put it in the private chat so I can grab it.
I also want to bring up the amount of Tory losses. Liz Truss, former Prime Minister, gone. Penny Mordaunt, gone. Grant Shapps, gone. Johnny Mercer, gone. Gillian Keegan, gone. As I mentioned, Therese Coffey was ousted by the Green Party, the Environment Secretary. She's gone. And my personal favorite, and oh my God, I was damn near aroused when I watched this result come in. Jacob Rees-Mogg, the poor excuse of the Victorian cosplayer, gone.
He's gone back to breastfeed his be breastfed by his nanny.
It's
we had what was great. Sorry, Matty. Yeah, what was great as well. I saw a tweet last night that said, "This is very devastating for Jacob Rees-Mogg. Not only has he lost his long-term seat, but he can't leave until the sunlight comes back down again. He just can't leave the room."
Ken Plume's here. Hello, Ken. Ken Plume, one of our favorites. This is sort of what the guys were speaking to. Like the Tories would not have gotten their toehold if the Lib Dems hadn't formed the coalition with them, and then the Tories tossed them aside as soon as they were able to cement their majority. It's like DUP. That's the whole the leopards eating faces party, and then we're surprised that the leopards ate the faces. It's like they've shown who they are, and that's.
If you want to know how pathetic they are, they did a full ass apology video.
The Lib Dems?
Yeah, when it happened.
Was it a?
We're sorry.
App? Was it like a?
It was. It might as well be. It was him just going, "We're sorry. We didn't do as well." Yeah, embarrassing.
Jonah's comment here. They should, but in my opinion, with such a labor landslide as called it, I do think it will go to their head a little. Think that everyone adores them now. Hopefully, it will rub off, but we'll see. Yeah, you don't want that to be riding the high for too long.
Well, what's worth mentioning as well is that the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, is an actual working class person. She is someone who had to rely on social housing and is very left leaning. So if we want to keep pushing that way, I have faith in that people like that in charge. So hopefully we get to see more of that and more pushing towards helping out the poorest communities and fixing these institutions that the Tories have just dismantled after all this time. And you never know. I'm trying to live with hope.
Jerry from Bombad, one of our favorites. Holy shit! I just saw the baked beans guy. Yeah, that's Jerry. That's me when I'm high too. Good job, buddy. That's it. I've been there. I've seen the baked beans guy.
Is he in the room with you now?
Well, let's close this for now. Obviously, world changing, life changing for you guys on a real level. In terms of basic things like personal things, like you touched on, Maddie, with how these decisions came all the way down into your personal life in a really hurtful way. And Charlie, I know you and I've been friends forever, and we've talked about basic shit like going to your appointment. How they make that infinitely more difficult than it needs to be for something you've been dealing with your whole life, and just all that. So let's talk about America.
Squarespace.
BetterHelp, which apparently the BetterHelp is a scam, which I hadn't been following.
I heard this.
Apparently, I need to do more research on it, but apparently Like I saw someone say like, "Oh my God, that guy, he's a BetterHelp influencer," and I was like, "Do we hate that now?" And then all the replies were like, "Yeah, they got outed for having like frauds and not real therapists, like it's the whole thing." But anyway, if you have BetterHelp scam information, throw it in the chat. America, it's not looking great. It is not looking great here in the United States. The Biden situation. I want to open with a little bit of like a thesis. We are fucked. No, but
that's the thesis.
well timed. The situation right now is interesting and frustrating in a lot of ways. And by the way, if anybody's watching this, leave likes, comments, concerns, questions, all that, retweet, share the video, all that good stuff. I'm not good at reminding people of these things. Neither is Ken, because we come from a time when you could just do radio and it would just be there. But whatever. Or not a time, a world, because I'm only 28. But it's a whole thing now with the yelling and the infighting, which has always been there, but now under a microscope because of Biden's horrible debate performance. And I want to say this up top, and I think I speak for the three of us, even though you guys obviously overseas and you're looking at this the way I look at your politics from that distance. I don't think anybody in their right mind, in our friend group, in our peer group, actually thinks that these two are just as bad as each other. I don't think anybody actually thinks that Joe Biden is just as bad as Trump. And I want to say that now, because much like when we covered episodes back, me, Ken, and Nikki, we talked about the backlash that Jon Stewart got from Democrats for daring to criticize Joe Biden, and how you criticize Joe Biden and immediately people, oftentimes more establishment centrist Dems, jump down your fucking throat with, "So you want Trump? Oh, so you want Trump?" And it's like, okay, we do not need to be in this hostage, abusive relationship dynamic with a party that works for us, where if we criticize it, then that means we want bad. It's like an abusive husband telling their victim spouse, like, "Well, if I leave, how are you going to afford things?" Like that is so bankrupt. That but thank you, Jonah. Thank you. I try. I'll do it for you anytime you hit me up. I'll give you a transatlantic voice message. But it's just like this notion that you cannot say that debate performance was bad, and maybe you should have thought about the fact that it could have gone badly. That's the thing. It's that on the Trumpian side of things, the Trump publicans, the MAGAs, the everything, the insurrectionists, the people that think it's fine to sexually assault people, the people that think it's fine to defraud charities, the people that think it's fine to be an open racist, going back to the 70s and 80s. That no one is saying that the Democrats right now are that. So we need to stop with this bad faith, like, it's like I threw it in the comments earlier, the Star Wars comparison, because we're all Star Wars nerds. Like, saying Valorum sucked at his job is not. That's not the time to be like, whoa, so you want Palpatine? It's like, no, that's not what that means. So cut the shit. Like every single time that somebody young is like, I wish you would consider one right now, or I wish he would have considered one right now, or anything like that. It's not to say that they're not going to vote. I got messages from people that I never speak to, nice people, but like people that I've talked to once on a Star Wars podcast, messaging me like, "I just can't even fathom you not voting." And it's like, when the fuck did I say that? Like, no one ever said they're not going to vote. No one has ever said that. So I'm putting all that out there now in an angry way, because it's such bad faith. And it says like that the Overton window of what's acceptable has shifted so far into crazy land that they now use that as their only party talking point. Like their only party talking point is, well, if you don't pick us, then we will descend into fascism. Please ignore the fact that we sent militarized police onto college campuses all around the country to beat up kids for speaking out about genocide. Ignore that we did that, not Trump. We did that. And but fascism will come if you do that. It's like, well, no, fascism is here, motherfucker. Fascism is already here. It's been here, and it's here more now after SCOTUS, which we'll also talk about. So putting all that out there, nobody wants Donald Trump. Nobody wants Donald Trump. Nobody. And if you're watching this and you want Donald Trump, this is not the show for you. Sorry, goodbye. Nope. It's just like,
sorry guys, I gotta go.
Yeah, bye, Chuck. Chip puts on his hat. Goodbye. Yeah, it's just like, so all of that really angers me. I'm sure there's a lot of that over there too that happens, but it's like you criticize labor, and then it's like, oh well, Tories, and it's like, yeah, we know Tories.
I got it, dude. I got it. Yeah. I got people calling me, some obscene shit for criticizing Starmer. Yeah. But it's the same everywhere. It's like everyone has become so divisive. And the thing about last night was the whole country came together for one purpose.
Yeah.
Imagine if we did that for everything.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do. The people can giveth and the people can taketh away. It's that easy.
No, yeah. Like I always go to this is obviously a different issue. It was the COVID response, but since the US bungled it, it was, enticing and intriguing to look at other people's responses. The way that Jacinda Ardern, when she was, Prime Minister of New Zealand, handling that response, like they got it so down. Meanwhile, in Florida, where I live, unfortunately, we had more COVID deaths than the entire nation of Taiwan, just in the state of Florida. And so it's like that the lack of togetherness will always be the enemy. But also within that, as Jerry points out here, yeah, we're going to vote, but I'm going to complain about the choices the whole way through. And that's the thing. This whole notion now of like, do we replace Joe? Do we not replace Joe? Whatever. For the record, I don't think anyone actually thinks it's going to happen. I think the hope of replace Joe is not necessarily because it will work. Like, it's not that people believe it that hard. It's that we are wondering, for the first time in our lifetimes, that late 20s, early 30s age group, will the Democrats do something bold and original and never before seen? Will that ever happen? That's what people want. It's not that people suddenly like Kamala Harris. The K-Hive memes and all that, like, it's not that people like her. They actively dislike her. But it's just like, okay, it would actively shock the world to get her or Newsom or anybody else that could potentially do this. And, people point out, well, it's only this many months away, and they're right. It's not that we think suddenly, it's not that we think, oh, there's an easy fix. It's that we are not sure if the plan that we have injected all this hubris into will work. It's almost like people are feeling we're gonna lose, and it would be better to lose bringing, a gun to a gunfight. And that's...
It's also the case of, like, people forget politics is hard. There is no easy answer.
Disagree. I played Civilization. It's easy.
Oh, good point. Sorry, my bad. As a fellow player of The Sims Medieval,
I play Command and Conquer.
I played Spore, so I know what it's like to be a god, let alone a politician. But anyway, go ahead.
Are they not the same thing? I thought they were.
Some people.
Yeah.
But no, it's true. Like, it's difficult. People think that there is an easy answer, and it's just frustrating when people think that there is a simple answer, like a one-person candidate will solve the problem, and that's it. That's not the case. The truth is that we're all complex beings, and yes, there are racists and terrible people out there, but also there's a lack of, literacy, and there's a lot of, people don't get the best upbringings. There's, you're taught by their parents, they don't have access to education like some other people do to make their own minds up. It's a complex web of things,
and it's an everyday job, which is something that Jon Stewart said. Like, it's every day until November 5th. It's every day after November 5th for us. Like, it's not like, the two choices sucks right now.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, like Joe, let's say Joe wins on November 5th. He could be dead on November 6th. And that's not a Joe Biden old. That's a Joe Biden human being. Like, he could walk out of his house and get hit by a car. Like,
it's a Joe Biden party animal.
Yeah. So,
see you later, bitches.
Why did you think Alden was from the Midwest? Man, you tell me, because I definitely don't fit the Florida energy. So you tell me.
But you know what it is as well for me, like, to give a Star Wars answer and then another metaphor answer. For the Star Wars answer, what I really liked about the sequel trilogy aspects, or what was implied in Bloodline, is the idea that, like, we saw Return of the Jedi, and we saw the ending where they, in the special editions, where they had the pie and throwing the stormtroopers off Coruscant, and we set free. And then within about 25 years, the centrist government, who were pretty much the same imperial, like, supported rich families, pretty much decided to leave the Republic, and then had their own police force back, which were the stormtroopers again. And people, that's not really realistic.
They took someone like Leia Organa, and they said, well, she's an insane radical. She misses the war. She just wants another fight. Like,
exactly.
And and that's what they did.
And it's and again, like, another example is that it's like you've hurt your leg, right? You're bleeding out. You're bleeding out with your leg, and the option is you can put a tourniquet on, and then go to, and hopefully you can make your way to the hospital where they will help you.
Yeah.
But you need a tourniquet now because that will help stop. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But it will help. Or you amputate your leg in the forest like a madman.
By the way, we have some great yes and going on right now. That's why I was laughing. Not at your point, but JMB says, Keg Stand Joe says, I'm out, fools. And then Jerry, Joe Biden unfortunately passed away doing a keg stand at the White House in July. Yeah. Look, Ken Plume, I want to address this, but it would be better to lose the absolute worst strategy to bring to the times we're living in. It comes from a powerful place of privilege and ill-placed nobility. Don't be a Ned Stark. I'm not saying that I want us to lose just because, of nobility or some like ideal or anything like that. It's not a place of like I acknowledge I'm privileged as like a cishet white person. Absolutely. But I also think there is a frustration going on with especially our age bracket right now, that as the Biden administration is doing what it is doing, that it is doing everything that it's doing, especially with Israel, especially with what's happening with the genocide in Palestine, and that, with the crackdowns on campuses and with the ignoring of the progressive voices and with the disenfranchising and with people like Hillary Clinton coming out to help unseat someone like Jamal Bowman, with their, racist buddies taking AIPAC money, taking all this money from old white families. When you look at all of that, it becomes frustrating that because the other side is Trump, they know that they can do those things. That's what's frustrating to me, is that because the other side is Trump, it gives them license to be above reproach. And that's what's frustrating. So I'm not saying it would be better to lose. Like, I think like this is Braveheart. It's not that. I'm just saying, if there is any way that you could maybe increase your percentage chance, you should probably consider increasing your percentage chance. And they don't seem to want to increase their percentage chance at all. And it doesn't seem like they've thought about that from 20 to 2024. So I'm not saying this. I mean, maybe it's coming off like privilege and ill-placed nobility, and like I get that, but like I think that the Ned Stark thing is also like a little bit of an ill-placed metaphor, even though I get exactly what you're saying, because Ned Stark had like the smoking gun piece of information that could have saved the day. That doesn't exist here. Like there is no one thing that I can do, that I can reveal about either of our big parties that anybody could reveal that would do that. Because if people found out today that Barron Trump was an incest baby like Joffrey Baratheon, they wouldn't care. And that's the thing.
Well, they just assume that he is.
And or maybe they just assume that he is. It's just the fact that like people right now don't even want to have the conversations about the fact that there could be a different way that becomes frustrating. It's about the fact that we have people, and it's not just young people, it's people of all different, like we have, Darina, who was on our show episodes back, Darina Ariano, DJ Bruja, who's just one of the best people, who's more like in Ken's age group and everything, who has talked about like this increasingly like what some people call, blue anon, but some people call blue MAGA, which I don't like either of those labels really for accuracy reasons. But that like, well, how dare you? Like people like Keith Olbermann that freaked out and called Jon Stewart a both sidesist and said that he needs to retire again. And it's like, all we're saying is we are in the fight of our lives. Are we as equipped as we could be? And if it is doomed, do we want to know that we did everything that we could, which Ned Stark did not do, which that's the thing.
That was brings me into a question that I had. That was like, do you think there's also some kind of level of, I mean, we've seen it a lot throughout history of political powers getting complacent and thinking that they've got it won just because they've either won in the past or they've been winning for so long. Do you think that, and this is me asking you out of like, I have no idea, so I'm hoping you or someone in the chat can tell me, is there kind of a complacency from Biden and the Democrats of like, well, we've already beat him, we just got to do the same thing again?
Oh, it's that for sure, you know, and again, Ken, tying this in with what you're saying. Frustration is understandable. You have to focus on winning the battles and don't lose the war. A way to move forward that isn't walking off the cliff. That's the thing. I think that we're saying the same thing. It's just, you know, if we're looking at this battle that will lose the war, because let's be clear, we talked about, you know, I had Amy Coney Barrett and SCOTUS also represented in the thumbnail. When you look at that SCOTUS decision, that's the battle now. That is 100% the battle. And I will say on the record, I will vote against Donald Trump. I will vote against this SCOTUS. And I think everybody should, because they are going after women and queer people and people of color. If you think that they don't have fantasies and fucking wet dreams about overturning loving, you know, like they would love to take us all the way back. They would love it. It's disgusting. It makes me sick. Like I literally, after the SCOTUS ruling about immunity, I was laid up in bed all day. Just not you know, and woe is fucking me, right? But like I just like laid up just thinking about how bad things are. Like my nephews are black, you know, my sister as a mom in 2024, like I think about all of our friends in the queer community and everything, and I think about everything that's on the line. But then at the same time, it's intertwined in my brain and in a lot of people's brains, because if it is all of that on the line, and we are playing, to your point, Maddie, if we are playing the well, we did it in 2020, we can do it again card with no change and actively with less approval, with actively more things pissing people off, such as the handling of the genocide in Palestine. It's like, you know, we're forgetting two key points of context. One, the Joe Biden in 2020 was not the Joe Biden doing what he is now. And that has disenfranchised people across the board, because it is like, yeah, and you know, to the point that people want to make, would Trump make Gaza worse? Of course he would. Of course he would. But it doesn't change what's happening right now. So there's that, and there's also the fact that there was a hidden third running mate in 2020 that people don't really bring up as much. It was Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and COVID-19. The fact that there was such a bungled response to this world-changing event, heavily, apparently he's gone. If you ask most people, he's gone. That bungled response and the ability for us to look at the amount of just like bloodshed and sadness and death that disease, you know, wreaked upon people, like that definitely helped, I think, unseat Donald Trump. And now we don't have that, and people have moved on from that in a way that we disagree with. But it's like, if it is going to be this fight of our lives and this battle that Ken Plume rightfully is saying could lose the war, and that, you know, this SCOTUS is already rogue and they've made it clear that they are preparing for his return. That is the thing. These are the first order generals and everything. This is the final order. This is the moment. These are the prides.
Against Peridia.
Exactly. Like these people out there, these like board shorts, red solo cups, date rapey college guys are your Huxes. Right now we are dealing with the prides that are like, okay, step aside. The long game is now over. And this moment, it's like, you just got to wonder, like, are we sending in somebody that can? And that's the fear. That's the anger. And the fact that they want to shout you down if you ask that question.
And what you were saying about complacency is actually the very thing I'm scared about in terms of this new Labour government in the UK, because I think complacency and centrists go hand in hand. And being moving to the center is an opportunity to move, like to rebuild and then move left. But often it's not used that way. It's used to placate the right. And then that just emboldens the right. And I think that's kind of what we've seen in this last few years with America. is that there hasn't been enough move. Joe Biden had the opportunity to really cement some things, and he didn't. And that's that's what my biggest fear of this Labour government is, that if you look at the rest of Europe, Macron, centrists, what happened to them? They're voting fucking Marine Le Pen.
Yeah, that's
Germany.
Exactly.
It's terrifying, and I think that's,
and it's like, but and you're right. Like there's memes and there's like very simplified. I'm not saying these memes are academically correct, but like you'll have a giant ass like scary wolf, and it's like Democrats when talking, to other progressives, and then a teeny little dog, and it's like Democrats when talking to fascists. It's like they will work real hard to unseat someone like Jamal Bowman, or Pelosi will work really hard to put someone like AOC in her place,
Yeah.
But they don't want upsetting within their own sect. But yeah, we've seen this throughout the Biden presidency. Like the times that he's been like, oh yeah, Mitch McConnell, great guy. Like he's always been a great guy. It's like,
it's a great guy,
dude. You have taken this chance that you had, and the fact that it's still as close as it is should be horrifying to everybody, especially. And that again, that's part of the frustration too. And we talk about Project 2025. There's a page for it on the Biden White House website. You can read up on it.
Even though Trump's trying to distance himself from it, when it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's in text. It's a published work at this point. That is their plan. They want to roll everything back.
I also hate that it sounds like a. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I hate that it sounds like a video game.
No, yeah, which I think is part of the point. They want it to sound like it's like DC's rebooting the fucking line again. Do you think the fact that Taraji spoke out about Project 2025 will have a real impact on Trump? For me, I had no idea until she mentioned it. I think you answered your question. I think that's it. I think everybody should be talking about it. The fact that Taraji P. Henson did that was amazing. It's because too many people are afraid to rock the boat, and rightfully so. I get it, especially in entertainment. Like whether people want to talk about it or not, there absolutely is a McCarthy-esque fucking "Are you now or have you ever been?" sentiment going along the Palestine discussions that have happened. We saw Melissa Barrera get ousted from the Screen franchise for speaking out, and thankfully it hasn't derailed her, and she's still going strong, and I love that for her, and she's great. And I'm sure people do want to grab the microphone and say things like what Taraji has said. We saw what happened with Jonathan Glazer, who won his Academy Award for The Zone of Interest, a film about the Holocaust, who then spoke about how we shouldn't allow these things to repeat. And then everybody and their mother was, oh, he's an anti-Semite. And it's like Jonathan, they don't want to get it. And that's the thing. And so this idea of like anything that is like, can we do better, is immediately throwing in with evil is just, it's misguided. It's very, very misguided, I think. And I worry, and I will say, like, on the record at 3:19 Eastern on July 5th, I'm gonna vote for Joe Biden. Duh. I think everybody that I know is gonna vote for Joe Biden. Everyone that I'm close to is gonna vote for Joe Biden. But it's like when you see the fact that Donald Trump could lie once on an average of once per 30 seconds in that debate, and the polling
was really that much.
Once per 30 seconds is pretty crazy. That's the average. The fact that things like are still this close, and that there are people in the Dem establishment, in the DNC, that like don't even want to humor this, even humor it, even think about anything, even think about any option, anything, all the quotes, everything coming out of, no, I'm in it to win it, I'm this, I'm that, I'm blah 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 blah, don't even ask, nothing, everybody. Gavin Newsom, everybody, oh, I'm all in. It's like the fact that you're not even wanting to have a human conversation with the electorate and with your constituents or with anybody out there that's afraid is really, really bad. It's like, it's the complacency mixed with hubris, mixed with a lack of picture for, I know people want to talk about the long game, and it's like, the long game, but like we need to worry about the short game too to get to the long game, which I think everybody agrees on. But it's about what we're equipped to do.
I I don't know about you, Matty, but I think what's different with the US and the UK is that just the nature of things and the fact that it's a global superpower. Like, I feel like we know a lot more about US politics than probably the US knows about UK politics, just by the nature of, it's a big superpower.
Yeah.
And I think...
Yeah, we're sorry about that, by the way.
I wonder what you think, mate, because I mean, I'm of the impression that I think Trump will win. I don't want him to. And that's what's scaring me in terms of, well, I hope that Labour will learn from this whole period, because I feel like it was interesting. In 2016, we were like ahead of you guys in terms of like the Brexit vote, and then that followed by the Trump administration, and then now it feels like it's like you've like sped run the fascism, and now we might be diving back into that. But yeah, I was wondering what you thought.
What I will say is, we did this in 6 weeks, right? We completely ousted 14 years of oppression and corruption in 6 weeks. It can be done. We've just shown that it can be done. I know we're all three of us, and a lot of people in the chat are Star Wars fans. We love to believe in hope. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. You have these big issues out there, like obviously Gaza being a massive one. Let's look at Labour last night. They lost seats, like people like West Streeting lost seats that were supposed to be safe to independent candidates because of their stance on Gaza. The places that are like largely Muslim communities were like, no, you're not speaking for us. You're gone. So it can be done. It's just, as Alden said, like, do you have the tools, and more importantly, do you have the want to do it? Like, are you really willing to do the things that need to be done to get people like this gone? Because let me tell you, I've been to a few UFC events now where Trump has shown up and his son is always by his side. You can't tell me that there's not some plan in his head that once he's done with this term, should he win, of trying to get one of his sons into the White House after him and trying to create like some kind of a dynasty thing. Maybe that's just me thinking craziness, but that's what's going to happen if like we continue to let the Tories run this country into the ground. If you don't take the necessary actions and, like almost said, equip yourself to fight these battles, it's just going to keep going on and on and on and on. And if you don't do anything about it, I used to be one of these people that was like, oh, every politician's the same. What's the point in me voting? Like, there's a point, guys. And this is coming from me, someone who, like, I can't stand 99.9% of politicians. I think they're all lying through their teeth. And even I, say that vote, in my opinion, vote tactically, vote for the person who best aligns with your ideals, your beliefs, everything that you represents you as a person. But also think about the people that are coming behind you. Think about, your future children, if your friends have children, think about the generation that are coming behind you, because they're the ones that are going to have to deal with this. We're going to get it in the immediate aftermath, but they're going to get everything that comes after. And that's what's at stake here, is the generations that come after us. And every generation that has come before us, I'm sorry to say, in fact, no, I'm not sorry to say this, every generation that's come before us has let us down. So why would we want to do that to the generations that come after us? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like a vicious cycle that we go through every time this comes around. And we never learn. We never, ever, ever learn. So I think for there to be this complacency and this, like, just completely unwillingness to change the system from the inside, and I think you got to be willing to do things that, as everyone said, are have never been done before, are outside of the box, like a lot of these independents that won over here last night. So
yeah.
Well,
it's interesting. 2 points. The first one, when you said, "Oh, is this too crazy?" I genuinely, it wasn't too crazy, because I genuinely thought you were going to say that he's going to try and put his brain into his son. live longer. And I believe I was like, I mean, that could happen. And yeah, secondly, you're right. I know Eli's in the comments about not trying to get his son in. I don't know. I could see it happening. He's a lunatic, you know. Like,
no, I mean, yeah, bringing the son in, or he's gonna try to run for a third. Oh, he absolutely will. He absolutely will
if he survives.
And someone pointed out, with SCOTUS, which, like, we'll talk about that a little bit more now in depth. This whole ruling of if it's official, then there's immunity, and no one knows what the fuck official means. That's the point. They want it to be vague. That way they could just apply it to everything. Someone was like, what if they just, decided that they were going to reanalyze, the rules of the presidency, and they decide that the 2 terms thing means they have to be consecutive. And so, and it's like, if we're really going to start going like to this, like, bullshit bad faith, let's read everything in the most, like, kiss Trump's ass way possible. It's the kind of thing that would have sounded like lunacy last year.
Or if Jimmy Carter just comes out and says he wants to start skinning people like Ramsey Bolton.
It's bad. Like the Supreme Court ruling, like I said, like it sent me into like a mini depressive low of just like nothing. It's hard to even. And this is the other thing, not for nothing. That means that Joe Biden has until November for this to apply to him. Think he's gonna do anything? You think he's gonna like? It was deemed that he can't cancel student debt, right? But he can now. You think he's going to? Like, that's the thing, is that they have given you the power now to energize in different ways. And like example, Roe v. Wade was taken away and overturned under Joe. And one of his campaign promises now, he's always fucking tweeting it, is that, well, if I win, we're gonna bring Roe back. And it's like, well, we lost Roe with you, so that's interesting because you didn't codify it. But like, codify it right now with this immunity that you've been granted. That way you can go into November and say, and and like, these are things where it's like, normally it would be like, well, to any of us, like, well, guys, you're being unrealistic. That's not how it works. The way it works changed this week.
Yeah.
The way it works is different now than it has ever been. This is like unprecedented.
He's been given the hall pass by his wife, and he don't want to use it.
What an analogy! That's the best analogy I've heard.
It's just insane.
He's been given the hall pass, and Natalie Portman is sitting opposite him, and he's like, "Oh, do you know what? I'm gonna just wait this. Just sit this one out."
I saw one of the readings from one of the Scottish judges of like, you could order an assassin. You could do. This is the kind of shit that helps Putin get away with the things he does. Of like, he could order an assassination attempt on a political adversary, and be like, "Oh, it was an official act. My bad." Like, can you imagine the uproar if Biden launched a drone strike on Mar-a-Lago or wherever Trump's holed up these days, Trump Tower or wherever? Could you imagine the uproar that would happen if that was the case? But I bet you if Trump did it, all the MAGA lot would be like, "Yeah, presidential power, woo, he did it."
That's what's frustrating, is when you see people who go, "Yeah, but you're just being unrealistic. Like, he wouldn't do those things."
No,
it's very out of character. It's like, well, what was January the 6th then?
Yeah,
what was that? Was that just a little get together, or
we're in a country that has to debate whether or not he has anything to do with it?
Yeah,
and now it's like anything that we've been trying to hold him to account for from those incidents is now what? Like, he was supposed to be sentenced now in July for the 34 guilties that he got in a jury of his peers that his lawyer has to vet, because that's how that works. That has now been moved to September, and we're even wondering, well, does any of it hold anymore? And it's like, if that's the conversation we're having, yeah, dude, codify Roe, cancel debt, like, do some of the things that will get because right now the battle that Joe Biden is fighting is to keep young people and to get young people that do not believe him anymore for the betrayal that is the support of Israel, for the betrayal that is what happened on college campuses, and then asking us to deny facts. It's that Orwell quote that everybody uses. They asked you to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their most essential command. To then go out and say, no, it wasn't overstepping on those campuses. They were violent protests. No, they weren't, man. No, they weren't. Like, we know they weren't.
There's no kids sitting on the grass, dude. They weren't violent at all. I've seen violent protests. I was in Camden when the whole violent protests were going off in there. I've seen the violent protests that have been happening in Paris. Like, that's a violent protest.
Yeah.
Those kids sitting on the grass saying, stop bombing hospitals.
They had mariachi bands and they were making quilts and they were making and so.
Oh, I didn't know about the mariachi bands.
That's what it was. Antonio. It was not. No. Sorry. It was mariachi bands, not El Mariachi, not Antonio Banderas with guns. It was.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll take it. Yeah. That's fine then.
Yeah. So it's like when you're doing all these things, and your administration, you've got people out there doing these pressers about Gaza, saying things like, "Well, we know the accusations are here, but we're going to allow Israel to investigate themselves."
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Yeah,
and it's just
when you're fighting that, to combat all that, you need to be doing things right now, and that's all anybody wants. We're all going to vote against Donald Trump because we have a duty to stand against fascism. We have a duty to stand against fascism.
It's terrible. Ted Bundy. We'll ask him to investigate himself and see what he thinks about the situation, and we'll see what he says from there. We'll move on. It's ridiculous. It's abhorrent, and it's just mind-boggling how murder has become a chess piece for some people, or ideology, and it's like, come on, like, this is a basic human. Do we not have any souls anymore? Like, what's going on? It just baffles me. And it's just disgusting.
And it's the same with
it's the same with trans lives as well. Like, the fact that people can't live their life and choose who they want to be, and it's just absolutely. I mean, I went yesterday I went to the gig, obviously, and I went to the toilet, and it just says like there may be male or female attendants in here. Doesn't bother me whatsoever, and yet that's an issue for people.
Because you're a human being. Because you're a decent human being, and the thing that gets me is that, like, let's say, you're an intellectual elitist who tells us what to think about Chimere. I don't know. But the interesting, like, not interesting, it's actually really sad. It's like, if we look at Joe, who we know worked with segregationists back in the day and has been a shithead of varying levels since the 60s and 70s. Like, when we know that, let's say his heart never changes and he is this ghoul who just doesn't care about life and, like, doesn't care about women's rights, doesn't care about Palestinian lives, whatever. Even if that is the case, it's like why doesn't anybody just grab the old man and be like, don't you want to win? Like even his basic, I want to be the guy, has not kicked in, evidently. Because even like we're talking about it, like how could people use these things as chess pieces? He's not even doing that. He's not even doing it. He's allowing Netanyahu and Trump and SCOTUS to have all of their hands on the chessboard while he says, don't worry, guys, we've got next. And that's the strategy. And
he's a silver golden age comic book character in an 80s world. He's like a 1930s Superman sidekick character in Watchmen. He still believes that's good. He believes that there is like due process and the world is like burning around him.
Just like as I put in the title of the video, American Kings. They were just given the power to be above everything and everyone. And their strategy is it will just right itself. Oh, that's interesting.
Very familiar.
Yeah, like the first order will take care of itself.
I mean, Hislop, who is like our version of Jon Stewart last night, said there's only so many times we can use the Titanic on the front cover of the I newspaper, and it's just like, what other analogy is there at this point that we could possibly use for this state of not just the US and the UK, but the entire world?
And look, we're going to talk about it Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I recommend, if you haven't watched it, there was an interview, I think a year or two ago, between Ian Hislop and Jon Stewart. It's fantastic.
Great.
It's the best British
American
satire minds coming together, and it's just.
I gotta check that out. That sounds awesome. We're gonna be winding down here in a few seconds. If anybody has questions, anything you want to talk about, even if it's not related to any of this world-ending garbage, feel free. I think obviously we're going to be talking about this 100 more times between now and then, off air, on air, everything. So the conversation is not over. I think the ultimate fear and frustration, we've all spoken to it. It's like, again, I'm going to do what I got to do. Everyone I know, everyone I've spoken to, honestly, I can say on my heart of hearts, I haven't spoken to anybody that has said, I'm not going to vote. And if anyone does say that to me, I'm going to caution them against it. I think we all would. We're all going to do our duty. I just wish that there was, that we were represented by people that wanted to make sure that we had the best shot. And I think, let's say Joe does win in November, which I think we hope happens. It's like, we got to have serious conversations. Not in 2028, not in 2027. We have serious conversations fucking November about what, because that's what they do.
Dude, I think we got to do it now. Like November's too late. We got to do it now.
They should be developing the antithesis to this Project 2025 of like, how are we going to shape things for progress? Why is there not a 900-page document called Progress 2025? 2025, not 2025. 2020. All the way in the future. We're doing Starfleet. Jonah, if Joe decides to step down, is there anyone you'd like to see take Joe's position? I mean, again, who I'd like to see is impossible. Like,
the WB Frog.
The WB Frog. Could you imagine? He's like, day one, I'm bringing back Angel. I'm bringing back Small.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Yeah. We have to
got my vote.
Correct. Look, I was a twice minted Bernie Sanders guy. It's just not going to happen. Because the Democrats will always put more effort into stopping someone like Bernie Sanders than they will into stopping someone like Donald Trump. Unfortunately. Obviously Kamala's right there. There's been some talk, like people have asked me, I've got some questions like the other day someone asked like, oh, so does she automatically become the thing? Not necessarily, not while the ticket's being decided. I think that would be the safest. And then we'd choose a vice for Kamala. Whether Kamala's vice would then be Gavin or anybody else, I just don't know. I really don't know. That's the issue too, is that I've said this before on this show and other places. In the 8 years of Obama, one of the things that he sold better than anything, he sold this shit like a max level bard with max charisma, and that idea was Uncle Joe. Joe Biden, during the Obama administration, people forgot his entire history. They forgot everything from his past as a senator. They forgot everything. And he became the aviators wearing memes. I'll knock him out. Like Obama's the talker and I'm the fighter. Like this cool older guy that had Obama's back. They gave him the Medal of Freedom. There's a mystery novel series about fictional versions of the two of them that you can buy at bookstores right now. About the two of them solving crimes and stuff. When Trump was running, there were those memes of like Joe Biden being like, it's time to assemble the Avengers. Like people thought Joe Biden was him. And that is because they sold him. In the last 4 years, they have done that for no one. They have not put over anyone as the future.
Yeah. I have a question. Can a previous president become a vice president?
Can a previous president become vice? I don't think there's anything against that. This I didn't know, though. This I did not know. Kamala's VP couldn't be Gavin Newsom, ironically enough, because of a weird rule in the Constitution that prevents the president and the VP from being from the same state. I never knew that.
Oh,
that's a stupid rule.
I never knew that. So that's what we have rules about, right? We have rules about this, but we don't have there. So mind you, this is a rule. What Eli from the Star Wars in a Galaxy and Epic Conversations Trivia League has pointed out. You cannot have a president and a vice president from the same state. However, there is no language about whether or not you can be president from inside of a jail cell. None.
Is he going to do like all of his his statements to like the State of the Unions? Is he going to do it like a collect call? You just get like, do you accept this call?
The whole nation gets to Zoom Donald Trump while he's behind the plastic. Like, yeah, like it. You. There's no.
Ave Maria.
Yeah, you literally. There are literal constitutional debates happening here in this country between scholars that do not know if him ending up in a jail cell would stop it. But can't have two Californians.
That's what
Obama.
James. Yeah, that's my point. Could
Obama
come back?
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said this before, and I remember there was an off-air call that happened that was like me and a lot of people you guys know from the Star Wars space and different friends of ours, whatever. We were all on Discord one night. This was like last year, maybe 2 years ago, talking about what would we do if not Joe. And none of us really had a good option. I mean, like you've got Buttigieg, who definitely has his love and his support. Just not big enough, I don't think, at this point. Bernie, ship has sailed. Klobuchar, just not gonna fucking happen. Like, there's a lot of people that like are in that conversation, but just for different reasons. I don't see it. Eli, Big Gretch. Yeah, Eli, why don't you tell us your pitch for Gretch? Why don't you type that in the comments? And then after a long conversation, there was like silence. We all went nonverbal, just depressed. And then I was like, wait a second. And they said, what? I said, Michelle Obama. Like, Michelle Obama might be the only thing that I genuinely believe is the only move that we have where we can get a player all the way to the end.
She's the trump card.
She's the trump card for Trump. Like Michelle Obama ticket with a vice that's like, Klobuchar, just anyone else. Really at that point, anyone else. The Warner Brothers, like whatever. That I think, because that's what people wanted from 16 Joe, and then he decided not to run, obviously because of personal tragedy. That would make people like, because again, nostalgia. It's
that's what's interesting. Michael McCastle's comment.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. Depends on how many terms the previous president served. If they only served a single term, they would be allowed. The search-term rules applies to potential VPs being interesting. Okay.
But with the new presidential thing put in by the Supreme Court.
Immunity. Yeah, immunity.
It's
like, I'm doing this because of official reasons.
Like, just Joe Biden just looked into the camera. I was like, you bitches want to play this game?
Yeah.
Look at my new VP. And then it's just Obama just walking in like.
Yeah, that's like a WWE tag team partner. Just like,
like, my God, it's Barack. That's Barack's music. Oh my God. Obama with a steel chair. He starts taking people out. Like, him and Joe start hitting moves they haven't hit in like 20 years. Like, everybody loves that. Yeah,
like,
awesome.
Like anime sort of like style, like.
yeah. Obama from the top rope. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. Save us, Michelle Kenobi. Yeah, I mean, again, everybody on the left and everybody in our age group has their criticisms of Obama, and rightfully so. There was a lot of hidden darkness in there, particularly with war crimes and things like that. And like, great, yeah, I'm not saying I love the guy, but there is a stabilizing presence there. Michelle, in terms of her legal background, more qualified than Barack. Like, there's a strong argument to be made. It would not just be First Lady moves into the slot. It would be actively like, oh, she knows this, she can do it, she's charismatic. The world respects her. Other leaders respect her. The nation respects her. She would be able to galvanize people that I think were hurt by Hillary not getting this chance to see a woman on that stage. Eli here for Gretchen. Michigan, 2-term governor, extremely popular in Michigan. Basically the closest thing we have to a DeSantis in terms of popularity, could get Midwestern voters in a way that others couldn't. Yeah. Gretchen. Yeah, not to be confused with Gretchen Wieners from Mean Girls.
Okay.
But yeah. No, 100%. I think that would be, Whitmer, a Harris Whitmer ticket, or, Whitmer Michelle, anything like that. I think it would be great to see Donald Trump have to lose to 2 women on a moral level.
That would be the most beautiful.
But again, we're having conversations that they are not having.
Yeah. This is why we should be running. This is why we should be in charge.
Yeah,
Do you think it's too late?
You guys go form a party over there, and then I'll announce my candidacy this week.
Do you think it's too late for Biden to change?
No. I mean, like that's the thing is that like I don't.
Okay, Christopher Walken.
No.
No.
I'm gonna find Hunter Biden and be like, your father was a weak man. He ruled. He ruled with the heart. And yeah, there's a really funny meme of Christopher Walken as the Emperor from Dune 2, and it's the he does the, you know why I killed your father? Because his Bene Gesserit was too bad. His smoke was too tough. His swag was too different. Yeah, it's interesting. Like is it too late? It's like, yeah, maybe to mount an entire presidential campaign, it is too late. But at the same time, would a change right now sink Democratic support? I mean, it's already low. Like, I don't like, would it make it anything different than the 50-50 that it is the question we need to be asking. Like, yeah. It's not like we're asking Joe to blow a massive lead. We're asking people to consider an alteration to 50-50.
We did it in 6 weeks, guys. Just bear that in mind. We did it in 6. We got rid of 14 years of bullshit in 6 weeks. You have till November. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liv is
I'll tell you what, though, there is
what is Crimson Dawn's plan for the presidency? Please tell me.
Yes, must know.
Oh, Bloke Kira should be a good one. I'll tell you what, though, there is one person who was born in the USA who could potentially.
Springsteen.
Huh?
Springsteen.
Yes.
I love how you're teeing this up like there is one who could unite them. Like,
no, I'm not uniting them. But there's someone who was born in America who could potentially, jump over on your side. Boris Johnson.
No. Why would you wish that evil on them, Ricky Bobby?
That's really funny.
America.
That's extremely funny.
We already gave him James Corden. We don't want to give him Boris Johnson too.
Yeah, but they gave him back. So
if Corden was gonna try to shake things up and run, at this point, carpool karaoke from the Oval Office would probably excite the younger base more than what is happening right now.
It would also be funny because Boris Johnson is a direct descendant of George II, and it'd just be funny if like another Hanoverian king was in charge of America again.
Jonah, I love this. I keep seeing something about a Kennedy guy going on about running. I know nothing about him though, so maybe he's bad.
Oh, RFK.
Jonah,
Vice President, the worm.
Yeah, this is RFK and his brain worm running as a ticket. This guy has actual brain worms. He's insane. He was just on Cuomo saying he would not eat people. Like this is a uniquely stupid person. And the fact that you have people out there like Zach Levi, like endorsing this man, it's like, dude, just the only thing I want to hear from you is Shazam, and even then, I can do without. Like, I don't want to hear if the word coming out of your mouth is not the word Shazam, and if you are not punching a dragon or fighting a caterpillar, I don't want to hear from you. All right.
I'll tell you what, it takes some fucking effort to beat the most impressive thing to happen to a Kennedy's brain.
It is. It does. It does. It does take.
And yet he succeeded.
And yet here we are. Yeah, it's like the fact that family was like just like, if you believe in curses, definitely cursed. Only for it to all get distilled down to one moron. It's like it's like the final insult.
Good.
It's the final insult.
There's only one way to take out the tapeworm.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, not great. Yeah, I think we're gonna be winding down unless anybody has any more questions or anything about anything you want to talk about. Maybe news dropped in the last 2 hours I didn't see.
I sent you some news, Alden.
You sent me news.
I did.
All right.
Some good
time for a live react.
I thought you said you sent him nudes. I was like, wait, what? We can't pull
that's a separate chat.
That's a separate, yeah. You have to subscribe to the highest tier. Oh man, don't send me that. It's from Discussing Film. Crazy Frog has returned.
No.
Netflix, apparently that Crazy Frog is featured in the new Beverly Hills Cop in some way.
Yeah,
what are we doing?
remember?
What are we doing? What is happening here? Yeah.
I used to bully a kid at school for having that as his ringtone.
Oh wow! What? Do you remember when we used to have adverts for ringtones?
Bro, do you remember when we used to have to text a number?
Yeah, text a number and you have to pay like 20p for like a David Brent voice message.
I had the Rasmus in the Shadows as my ringtone.
Oh, a song! Oh, that's great.
Anyway, so
yeah.
gentlemen,
any questions?
Sorry, hold on. Yes, here we go. Eli, yeah, the youngest person in the chat, reacting to his celebrity. His celebrity, Crazy Frog. Yeah.
He should run for president.
Crazy Frog? Or Eli?
Crazy Frog tapeworm.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Honestly, yeah. You know, honestly, this will be my last thought. This will be my last thought. And it's a serious one. It's going to sound not serious to some, but it is. You know who would be the ultimate person to run right now? And my evidence for this claim is look at Zelensky. Jon Stewart should run for president.
You got my vote.
He never would.
American, you got my vote.
He won't. But like, I think there was a time pre-Trump when we were like, the idea of somebody from outside of politics running, like, we've destroyed that. It's destroyed. We've seen the worst end of it with Donald Trump. We've seen the best end of it with Zelensky. Zelensky was the Ukrainian, satirical comic. He was on television, and now he's there, not running the war from a bunker. He's in the war, and that's real leadership in that situation. So, but that won't happen. That won't happen. I'm gonna take a depression nap and imagine President Stewart.
If that does happen, Jonathan Pye needs to run over here.
I mean,
and can someone please make me a shirt with the Crazy Frog tapeworm 2024?
Yeah, you're like, someone please make it for me, as if you're not the fastest fucking meme photoshopper that I know.
I don't want to do it all the time.
If someone else made that joke, you would already have the image 80% complete.
Look, sometimes I want someone to focus on me for a change,
So you want to
take me to dinner.
So you want to do a romance episode now on top of everything that we already said. We'll do a romance hour maybe Saturday night. Maybe we'll get seen here. Okay. Yeah, Stewart has too much sense to run, and Crazy Frog is not old enough. So that's where we're at. Boys, thank you so much. I mean, we talked about a lot. We solved nothing. It was mostly just a venting session. Of course, more positive on the UK side of things. Overall, lots of work to do, of course. But congratulations on no longer having to live under Tory rule. It's been. I mean, there are babies, and kids that you guys know, Charlie, all of your brothers that have never known anything but that.
No, pointless fact: the last Doctor Who episode to air under a non-Tory government was Vampires of Venice.
Well, the pain that I just felt. It's been that long. I'm so old. Anyway, plug your shows, your stuff. Go ahead. Whoever wants to start.
Charlie, you
go. Okay. You can follow me on Twitter at CMWASHBY and follow my podcast, the Imperial Senate Podcast, at ImpSenatePod. Everything else on my Twitter, you can find my Linktree bio in my bio. So just follow me everywhere else.
All right. How about you, Manny?
You guys can find me everywhere on social media at Matty Mourner, which is MOURNER, which is also the name of my band, which you can find on social media and streaming services at Mourner Band. If you like heavy, pissed, aggressive music with a positive message, I call it positive mindful aggression. You can find that on, as I said, on all streaming services. I'm one half of the Holy Snokes Star Wars podcast with PRD, Paul Denuso, every Wednesday on the PRD Project's YouTube channel. And coming up, we'll actually be doing a non-Star Wars related project with the other half of this show, which is going to be with the great Ken Knapsack, which is going to be coming out very soon.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a one-off thing, but it's about a band that is very close to myself and Mr. Ken Knapsack, and I will leave it at that.
The Max Rebo Band. I can't wait to hear about it.
Is it Aqua?
Thank you. Yeah, it's Aqua.
Try to keep it a secret.
Thank you both. And one more time, just for everybody playing at home. Ha ha. Very, very funny. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. You can find me personally at that Alden Diaz, THATALDENDIAZ. Again, stick together, talk to each other, listen to each other, stop shouting down people on your own side. There has to be hope. There has to be something. And we will be with you talking our way through the pain until there is, and afterward, hopefully. This has been Anytime with Ken and Alden. Ken will be back. Head over to Mark Ellis's website for ticket information. Head over to Ken's socials to find new clips of the new performances. Casterly Talk continues. It's every Sunday night at 10:30 Eastern after the new episodes of House of the Dragon. I've been covering things with different guests coming in. It's been a lot of fun. Go Team Black, because the Greens are the Tories of Westeros. And that is my final thought here. We will catch you next time right here on Anytime.